heart of hearts, you always worried that this is what Unitarian Universalism was about, wasn't it? That's why I thought I'd play with y'all today. Most of you know October 31st is Halloween. Some of you likely celebrate All Saints and All Souls Day. Some of you probably celebrate Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. Hindus have the festival of lights called Diwali. And some of you might be familiar with Samhain, which is celebrated by Wiccans and many other pagan groups to honor those to whom we say goodbye. The Pagan Study Group here at UUFBR explores how the sixth source and seventh principle of Unitarian Universalism can find a richer expression at our fellowship. Spiritual teachings of an earth-centered tradition which celebrate a sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Earth-centered means, more or less, that a religion is naturalistic, placing a heavy emphasis and value on the natural world and on the environment. Native American spiritual traditions, while markedly different from modern pagan religions, in many ways are one example of an earth-based or earth-centered spiritual practice. Wicca is a neo-pagan religion, and practitioners called Wiccans, or witches, generally believe in and honor many different deities, which are usually considered aspects of an overarching goddess and god. Wicca draws its practices from ancient Celtic, Germanic, Nordic, Roman, and Greek practices, but is a modern pagan construction and an eclectic blend of old religions. Wiccans follow the wheel of the year, which corresponds to the equinoxes, solstices, and cross-quarter days. Samhain is a cross-quarter day that comes between the autumn equinox, which we celebrated here on September 22nd with our letting fall ritual, and the winter solstice, which will be celebrated here on December 21st at 7 p.m. with a service of song, stillness, and stories. But for today, for Samhain, we mark the end of a cycle of the wheel, and therefore the beginning of a new cycle and a new year. We honor the passing of the old year, including loved ones, and may have passed away during it. It is time to honor family members, friends, pets, who will not be forgotten, as death need not be something to be feared and fought. Unless we are talking about zombies. Yes, zombies. Zombies who feed on human brains. And before you laugh me out of this pulpit over the existence of zombies, I want to show you something that proves they are real. Real and in this room with us right now. What do you see here? If you're on Zoom, type it into the chat, and if you're in the sanctuary and you feel comfortable, raise a hand and tell me so I can call on you. I also made this tactile so that Sandy and Rick could tell me. Well, I see you all looking up at the screen, so I know you're seeing it. No one wants to share what they see? Yeah.
Sure. On first glance, it looked like a flower.
Looks like a flower. Okay, good share. Thanks.
Mickey Mouse ears.
Mickey Mouse ears. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good share. Oh.
Looks like a clover.
Alan says it looks like a clover. Thank you. Good share. Yeah.
Looks like cleavage.
Cleavage. Thank you, man. My favorite Agent Chaos.
Unfinished art.
Why unfinished art? That is such an interesting thing to say. Yeah.
People on the other side.
But why unfinished? Well, what was your thought with that? What was your thought to say unfinished?
Well, because I love art, and the years was developing.
Yeah, I'll repeat, don't worry.
So I'd be, she didn't have an idea of publication, so she just put a big white square in there.
Looks like the artist didn't know how to finish it and just put a big white square in there.
Around
ran out of toner in the printer. Yeah, I got you. No. You might, next slide. You might think that you're seeing a square or 4 circles here. But in fact, there is not a single complete square or circle. So what makes you see those shapes? When an image is incomplete, your brain fills in the gaps by figuring out the most likely interpretation. This helps you quickly make a decision. Usually your brain is right, but this time it made you see something that wasn't there. It's just those 4 incomplete semicircles, right? A Kwanzaa square is a useful illusion that helps prove a hypothesis of the physicist and physiologist Hermann von Helmholtz. Next slide, please. It proves that there is a mechanism deep in our minds shaping our image of the world without our doing anything at all, not consciously, not intentionally. Inside our heads, another mind automatically shapes not only our perceptions with implicit references, but all mental processes, including judgments, decisions, and actions. The subconscious mind may take over simple, repetitive tasks, freeing up the conscious mind to focus on more complex thought. The workings of this inner zombie mind can be evident in a wide variety of other mental phenomena, such as sleepwalking, or that feeling of being on autopilot when you're driving your car, like home from work. These also have extreme cases called blindsidedness and split brain patient, but this other mind can be also evident in a more common occurrence, such as making spontaneous associations and jumping to instant conclusions, like when playing one of my favorite cell phone games. Next slide. Connections is a word puzzle from the New York Times, where the goal is to group words together that share a common thread. Puzzles are rarely straightforward, as they use homophones and wordplay among other techniques to keep game players challenged. Next slide. There is a grid of 16 words, and 4 belong to one of 4 specific categories based on association. In connections, each category has a difficulty level, which is labeled with a color. Yellow is the simplest, and purple is the most difficult. You're only allowed 4 mistakes. Next slide. So, who is the game player? When you look at the words, you put that material into your working memory. However, working memory is just a vanishingly small part of the mind. It's the user interface, so to speak, where we take information in and process it, and we remain unconscious to most of the input, most of the memories that flood our brain. Otherwise, we drown in a Proustian sea of memories. Our head's a search engine of lost time, struggling under remembrance of things past. We're only aware automatically and quickly of possible puzzle solutions and of the end result, not the winding path that it took us to get there. So then, who was doing that thinking inside our head? Who was the real game player? My friend, that was your zombie. Inside your head, living off your brain, because it is your brain. Your subconscious. First, it made that mindless mistake when we mentally filled in the missing square, and then we unconsciously, unthinkingly accepted as valid the thoughts to solve the connections puzzle. And that zombie will strike again, using and confusing our memories to make precisely the same mistake repeatedly that we make when we imagine the future. And if you will, no, go back one, click on the dial. Yeah, on the top dial, the channel selector.
These creatures cannot be considered human. They prey on humans. They do not prey on each other. That's the difference. They attack and they feed only on warm human flesh. Intelligence, seemingly little or no reasoning power, but basic skills remain are more remembered behaviors from normal life. There are reports of these creatures using tools, but even these actions are the most primitive. The use of external articles as bludgeons and so forth. I might point out to you that even animals will adopt the basic use of tools in this manner. These creatures are nothing but pure, motorized instinct. Their only drive is for food, the food that sustains them. We must not be lulled by the concept that these are our family members or our friends. These creatures cannot be considered human. They prey on humans. They do not prey on each other. That's the difference. They attack and they feed only on warm human flesh. Intelligence, seemingly little or no reasoning power, but basic skills remain are more remembered behaviors from normal life. There are reports of these creatures using tools, but even these actions are the most primitive. The use of external articles as bludgeons and so forth. I might point out to you that even animals will adopt the basic use of tools in this manner. These creatures are nothing but pure, motorized instinct. Their only drive is for food, the food that sustains them. We must not be lulled by the concept that these are our family members or our friends. These creatures cannot be considered human. They prey on humans. They do not prey on each other. That's the difference.
It's amazing how George Romero predicted this back in 1978. in Dawn. I cannot tell you precisely when your zombie first reared its head. That is because your zombie, being a zombie, suffers from what Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert and his colleagues call the end of history illusion, which I learned about from NPR's Hidden Brain podcast, and then I dove deeper into the TED Talks. Next slide. The end of history illusion is a psychological bias where people believe they have experienced significant change and grown up to the present, but will not experience substantial future growth, even though they recognize the past changes of their perceptions and personalities. Essentially, we see ourselves as largely finished, despite all the evidence to the contrary. In other words, we never stop growing up, but the zombie in our head is dead to that. The phenomena affects people of all ages, teenagers, middle-aged individuals, and seniors. People consistently underestimate how much they'll change in the future, regardless of their age. It's not a failure of memory, it's a failure of the zombie's ability to keep living. Look, at 28, I knew I had significant life changes since I was 18. I graduated college, I moved out of my hometown, I moved out into my first apartment, right? But I couldn't see how much my life would change over the next decade. So 38-year-old me, happy husband and father of one, I changed totally because of my lovely wife and daughter. They changed my heart and that changed my mind in ways that the zombie just couldn't have predicted. And this pattern continues with older age groups as well. 48-year-old me thought, okay, I'm done. Maybe the hair gets grayer, eyeglasses get stronger, a few more wrinkles, right? But this is essentially the guy I'm gonna be from now on. And was I? No! Activities that didn't make me happy at 34, I am happy with at 54. I look back at the past 10 years and I say, wow, have I changed? And I'm sure you do too. The rate at which we change does slow down as we age, but it doesn't slow nearly as much as we think. In fact, your patterns of behavior, your likes and dislikes, your ideals and principles never stop changing. The only constant in life is change. In other words, people may believe that who you are today is pretty much who you will be tomorrow, despite the fact that it wasn't who you were yesterday. In general, people fail to see significant changes in hindsight, but we fail to predict that these changes continue. And despite repeatedly making mistakes and predicting personal growth, people don't learn from those mistakes. It's like the optical illusion. Would you jump ahead 2 slides? Yeah. We keep doing it. It's our zombie brain persistently misperceiving the future. We think our history is ended and we sit in a box. That isn't there. We are a work in progress, never finished. We are so much more than we think we are or will be. We somehow imagine that the person we are right now is who we will be for the rest of our life. Hint, that's not the case. Now, we do need to be gentle with ourselves because how often we make choices that don't lead to happiness, primarily because we misestimate our ability to imagine the future. It's a lot easier to remember the past than it is to imagine the future. The bottom line is, time is a powerful force. It reshapes our values. It transforms our preferences. It alters our personalities. It changes us so much over our lives to the point that the people we were in the past are dead and turned into our inner zombie. We seem to appreciate that fact only in retrospect. Only when we look backwards do we realize how much change has happened in the past year and over the decade. Which brings us back to the wheel of the year. It's almost Samhain, time to call out to our ancestors. This year, let us also include our younger selves. Show some respect for the people we used to be. Terrible haircuts, bad fashion choices, and all. And this year, for Halloween, I want you to keep an open mind and let a zombie feed on your brain. Which brings us to the ritual of resolutions and remembrance. First, you should find in your order of service cutouts of human brains on scratch paper, already bound for the recycling bin. We're giving them one final thought before they go. On Zoom, take a second to gather a piece of paper that you were going to recycle. You can draw a brain shape, tear it out, cut it out if you like. Feel free to show the camera your brains. Next, you should find something to write with, a pencil or a pen. Check the attendance bag at the end of the row, or you can ask an usher for one. When we're ready, we'll begin the ritual of resolution and remembrance. Relax, loosen up any tense body parts. Take 3 deep breaths. Whether or not you believe in magical practice, the ritual of resolution and remembrance is an ideal opportunity to reflect on what you hope to achieve for the coming year and what you do. If you do believe in magic words, abracadabra, it causes you to create what you speak. So think carefully. On the brain, write down a word for the year to come to focus efforts and create intentional goals, but not for yourself. What do you wish for someone else or several someone else's? What word of advice would you give them? What words would make you feel comfortable sharing with them? What inspiration? What desired outcome? You might wonder why the ritual calls for us to give away our word and accept the words of someone else. After all, since it's Samhain, why should we share our secret thoughts? Why not keep our New Year's resolutions private? We certainly could, except our inner zombie is eating away our brains from the inside, and it would mindlessly chew it up. Let's go back to the end of history illusion being studied by Harvard professor Dan Gilbert. Generally speaking, people are unsuccessful in accurately imagining their future. Previous research in psychology, neuroscience, behavioral economics show that people have difficulty predicting what we will like, what we will be like, and how much we will like it, which leads us to make a wide variety of dumb and poor decisions that crawl up from our zombie unconscious. If you want to know what will make you happy in the future, then ask a stranger, not the zombie. Another person's experience is often more informative than your own best guess. People believe that the best way to predict how happy they'll be in the future is to know what their future holds. But really, what they should want to know is how happy people who have been to their future actually turned out to be. Almost any decision you're considering, large or small, many people have already made, and they've made it in both directions. There are people who are doing things that you only imagine. Gilbert says, rather than close our eyes and imagine the future, we should examine the experience of those who have been there. That is a completely different way to figure out how you will feel. And that is to ask people who are already in your future how they feel. So close your eyes and imagine the future, but not your future, the future of someone else. And then on the brains of scratch paper, scratch out for them a life lesson, something you learned from your trial and errors, something you learned the hard way. Give them an encouraging word, or write down the name of a role model, someone you admire. Otto von Bismarck observed that only a fool learns from his own mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. Are you inspired by the Dalai Lama or Dolly Parton? By Jimmy Carter? Jimi Hendrix? Jiminy Cricket? If you are skeptical and scientific oriented, using other people's experience as a guide to your own as a method is something we call surrogation. If you are spiritual, this is an aspect of the golden rules. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if you are a Wiccan willing to do the spell work, please repeat after me. Abracadabra. On Samhain night, bless the year to come. Our prayers be heard and harm to none. Lord and Lady, we ask of thee, these words be done. So may it be. And now, we feed the zombies our brains. The choir is going to start chanting ominously. And to that soundtrack, when you are ready, if you are ready, slowly reach to the person sitting behind you and ask them to trade like this. Rain. Or stand up and stagger across the aisle to someone in the sanctuary to exchange with them. Shout at them. And give their zombies something to chew on for the next year. Choir?